we need to design technology in a way that it supports the marginalized, it supports the weaker sections, it supports the poor. And the purpose of education also is to liberate the marginalized groups. We strongly believe that technology should be used to empower teachers in the education space.
Today we have with us Mr. Guru Murthy Kashinathan, founder and director for IT for Change. Mr. Guru has 31 years of experience in the development and corporate sectors. He leads projects in the areas of education, including in research, demonstration projects, systemic teacher education reform, and policy advocacy. His areas of expertise include ICT integration in school education, teacher education, and pre service teacher education. He also works in the areas of school leadership and free and open digital technologies. He was earlier with the Azim Premji Foundation, where he was deputed to work in the policy planning unit in the Karnataka Education Department. Lovely to have you with us today, sir.
Thank you, Yamini.
So, we would just like to, begin by understanding a little bit about your journey in education and how IT for Change really came into being.
Yeah. So I'm basically from the corporate sector. I worked in the technology sector for around a dozen years, and my heart was really in development and social change. And I was thinking, what should I do? And at that time, Azim Premji Foundation was set up in 2000, and it was rapidly expanding. So I thought I should join an NGO to really understand how the sector works. So I worked in Azim Premji Foundation for around 8 years, and I got an idea of what the education system is, what are the challenges in education, what can be possible solutions for that. And then after that, I joined IT for Change, which I had set up in 2000. So IT for Change also was set up in the same year that Azim Premji Foundation was set up. But I thought it's good to get experience in an established organization so that one learns the tricks of the trade.
Right.
So that has been my journey. And Azim Premji Foundation was a very fulfilling experience because it's a NGO which really focuses on working on scale and trying to really make sure that the public system is delivering for everybody. Right. So that was a very useful experience. And of course, in Azim Premji Foundation, I didn't work in technology and education, but that's what I'm doing in IT for Change.
Right. So tell us a little bit about what is the vision behind IT for Change and how is it truly leveraging IT, so to say, to drive change?
Yeah, so IT for Change during in 2000 was the year of the dot-com boom, and lots of dot-coms were set up, and that's why we call it the year of the dot-com boom. There was also the year of the Y2K boom. In India, a lot of people got into working on software to make it century proof because the year 99 was becoming 2000 and people feared that applications would not work. So at that time, when everybody was talking about technology, that was the first time when technology was a household word and everybody was saying technology is changing society, technology is changing the world. We're still saying that, but we started saying it in 2000.
Right.
A group of us got together and felt that technology, what it is doing for business, the same thing it cannot do for social sector. The social sector application of technology has to be unique to the challenges and problems of the social sector space.
Right.
So I was only technology person in that group. There were other people who were working in development, some working in gender, some working in governance reform, some working in labor and worker issues. So we all got together and said, let's start this NGO because we need an NGO which is going to look at technology from a social sector perspective, not necessarily the way it's popularly, it's popular in the world, which is in the business sector form.
Right.
That's how it started. And of course, any NGO, when it starts, it's not going to be from day one unless you have like an Azim Premji Foundation that somebody is supporting it from day one. For an NGO, it's really a struggle to find specific projects and purpose in what it does. So our first big project was in Mysore, where the government of India gave us a grant to explore how community knowledge centers. Now, of course, these are very common and all over the country, we have these knowledge centers.
Right.
But I'm talking about in 2004, when this was still a very new area. So we did a 2-year program on how knowledge centers can be set up in rural areas and how they can support rural development. So that was the first big project that we got in 2004. After that, the journey has been continuing.
Right. I think that this was a very progressive thinking, because now, we're in this new NEP that has come out, where we've seen that technology has been formally recognized as being very important in our mainstream curriculums. So to think of something like that, almost 21 years ago is wonderful to hear. And on the subject of the NEP, sir, we've seen this great new policy come around with changes that have been a long time coming, whether that be integration of technology or integration of vocational skills. So, how best do you think technology needs to pivot to support these changes? And what are you doing, especially at IT for Change, to work towards the next implementation level of this policy?
Yeah, so all technologies have a positive side and a negative side. So that's important to understand. And particularly in the context that many people seem to believe that when you say technology, it means good. Technology can only do good things, and therefore you should keep putting technology anywhere and everywhere.
Right.
At ID for Change, we don't believe that, because our research also says that technology can be quite dangerous. It can be quite harmful, particularly for women. The cyberspace can be extremely dangerous space, and I am on Twitter, and women who are on Twitter, women politicians who are on Twitter, they get trolled like anything. So anybody who's a feminist and who's on Twitter faces enormous violence. It is violence in a way. It's cyber violence. It's not physical violence, but the mental trauma is terrible, and that's technology enabled. You can be trolled by anybody in the world. So we are very, very keen that we need to design technology in a way that it supports the marginalized, it supports the weaker sections, it supports the poor. And the purpose of education also is to liberate the marginalized groups. Education has always been something that the privileged groups have enjoyed forever, and it's only the last 30, 40 years that government of India has taken the previous national policy in 1986 really gave a thrust to universal education, and the 2020 policy also continues on that. So
Right.
for us, given that as a mandate, we strongly believe that technology should be used to empower teachers in the education space. So there are many people who want to deliver apps and give apps to young people and imagine that the learning will happen. But given my own work in education, I know that education is meaningful only when there's a good teacher supporting that process, and no technology can replace a teacher. So our work in the education space has really been, and the NEP also says that, it says that use technology for teacher empowerment, which means two things. One is teacher development, so that teachers acquire competencies to use technology fruitfully. So that is one level, which is the competency part. The other is the agency part. So teachers should have the flexibility and autonomy to decide how to use technology in the ways that is relevant for them. Otherwise, what happens is we have centralized technology programs, and there will be some diktat coming from the top saying technology should be used in this way. Everybody should download a Diksha app. Everybody should use a Diksha. And these kind of centralized designs will not work for everybody. What will work for a teacher in Bihar is not going to work for a teacher in Kerala. What's going to work in Punjab won't work in Tamil Nadu. So unless we are able to decentralize these designs and allow teachers and schools to make decisions, which technology can enable. Technology is not that it's only going to support centralization. Technology can actually allow peer networks to emerge. So
Right.
IT for Change work has been teacher empowerment, teacher profession development, teacher network. So this is what I was saying is what has been the focus of IT for Change work also.
Right. That's a very important point that you made, sir, that, it really has to vie as well for the marginalized communities. And when you look at the reality of technology and education in India, we see this great rural and urban, digital divide, as we say. So how do you think this is something that, while the technology in place is great, how do we go about bridging such a divide, which is especially becoming more and more pertinent through this pandemic?
Yeah, actually, the pandemic itself is a very serious issue as far as education and equity in education is concerned. Just in the afternoon, I had been to a government high school in Bangalore. So I'm not even talking about rural areas. And
Right.
the teachers are really apprehensive that many of the students are going to drop out of school this year. So, in middle class families, our children have been attending online classes pretty much throughout the pandemic.
Right.
So their education has not been affected. But if you look at the government system, I would say 90% of children going to government schools and government colleges have not received any education in the last 8 months. Now, when you're young, the chances that you will forget what you learned 8 months before is extremely high. In the meantime, young girls are being pressurized into marriage. Boys and girls are getting into child labor. They're earning some small amounts of money. And so there's a real fear that there will be a learning loss. And more than that, there will even be an out of school dropout situation now. So to bridge this gap, I think there is no easy solution. See, teacher development will work, but what if the devices are not there? What if connectivity is not there? What infrastructure is not there? Now, this cannot be left to the private sector alone to invest in and make it happen, because education is not a business. You're not going to be able to make money out of selling hardware or selling connectivity to schools in remote, poor rural areas. Of course, there will be elite schools in urban areas where it's possible that you can have it as a business proposition. So I think what Kerala has done is, Kerala in many ways is a role model for the country.
Right.
Here too, they have invested very hugely in setting up infrastructure and connectivity across the entire state. Kerala is a small state, I agree, but Kerala is hilly, Kerala's got forests, so they have the challenges of terrain like others have. The only difference is they have decided to invest money in making the infrastructure available. Once the infrastructure is available, teacher development is possible, teacher networks are possible. What rural urban divide you're talking about, the networks of teachers are the best way to bridge it. So if rural teachers and urban teachers are connected, private school teachers and government school teachers are connected, high school teachers and primary school teachers are connected, teachers are connected across subject, across medium, then the kind of learning possibilities that we will see, we will make sure that the best of the learning possibilities in one place, the ideas and knowledge about that is available everywhere. And I think technology can play the role of a connector, and the connector will enable the bridging of the divide. But that requires huge investment.
Absolutely right, sir. I think this, it has to be a joint effort. It can't be left to the private sector alone. And we've seen that through this pandemic, where the importance placed on collaboration and convergence is really huge. Another issues I would like to, bring to light is, education for those with special needs, because that is one more important thing that the NEP has stressed upon, that we need to make our schools friendly for those whose needs are different from ours, and equip them with all the necessary technology and tools that can allow them to continue their education and go on to earn livelihoods. So, can you shed some light on what role do you think technology can play in making our education more inclusive?
Yeah, so actually, just to share, the language has now become the language of inclusive education.
Right.
So earlier we used to use the phrase children with special needs.
Right.
But when we say inclusive education, it's not only when we say special needs, we often think of children with physical disabilities or visual impairment or hearing impairment. So we use the phrase special needs. But what we are increasingly recognizing is that in a class you will have children who do not have any visual impairment, no physical disability, but they come from a family which has not been to a school ever. So that is also a kind of a disability, or there is a kind of a disadvantage, not a disability, but a disadvantage. So increasingly when we say inclusive, we are saying that irrespective of your background, if you're able to get the learning opportunity that will help you progress in your own, ability to develop yourself, then it's inclusive. So even if there is a child which is not able to speak the language with the medium of instruction is, or as a girl sibling who's having difficulties at home. So inclusive education goes beyond only children with special needs. Now with special needs, there are specific tools available. So for example, for visually impaired children, there are text to voice readers. So there are text to voice, voice to text readers. There are different kind of engines that are available for helping the transcending of specific disabilities. But in terms of a larger inclusive environment, how digital technologies help, and this is what our work has also focused on, is to create additional pedagogical resources for teachers. So teacher traditionally has certain content and certain pedagogical approaches, which may be meeting 30% of the class population. But digital technologies can allow the teacher to increase the pedagogical repertoire, increase the content available. So from chalk and talk, you've gone on to videos, you've gone on to animations, simulations. So when the pedagogical and the content repertoire of the teacher increases, the teacher is able to meet the requirements of larger and larger students. Also, technology can support peer support opportunities in the classroom. So group work, project work, collaborative work, when technologies are used to support these kind of approaches, then we find that children are learning from children also, and therefore a much more inclusive environment can be built. Technology has a role here, but it has to be properly devised. So one important principle, for example, in the Indian context is we need to promote free and open source software because, for example, we're talking about visually impaired children.
Right.
Now there is a proprietary software called JAWS. Now the JAWS license is so expensive that if you are blind and poor, you don't have a chance. You are blind and rich, you are okay. We cannot have money availability as a factor to determine whether a blind child will get education or not. But there's a free and open source equivalent for JAWS. Now governments and schools are to consciously adopt and promote free and open source software so that any tool that's available for a child can be available for all children, and that is also an aspect of inclusion.
Mm-hmm. That's very important, sir, and thank you for bringing that point about inclusive education. We've spoken about all the great work that IT for Change has been doing in the areas of teacher empowerment and really leveraging technology to improve the education realities that we have in India. Can you tell us a little bit about what are your plans for the future and what are some specific areas that you would like within education to focus on with technology?
Yeah, now with pandemic, digital technologies have become much more commonplace, and maybe a year back we were wondering how will we reach technology everywhere and how will we make sure teachers embrace technology.
Right.
We find that those questions are not really the questions now. Teachers want to embrace technology because they realize that without technology in a school shutdown situation, you can't reach children at all.
Right.
So, but the challenges of workable models still exist. So the private schools, the middle class, those groups' needs are taken care of. But that may be 20% or 25% of the population of this country, where digital technology can work for everybody. Now, that is something we've been doing all along. But in the pandemic, for example, we've been offering online courses using free and open platforms. So we don't use Zoom, which we are using now for this call. We don't use Zoom, we don't use Google Meet, we don't use any of the proprietary tools that all of us are familiar with. We used to create teachers groups on WhatsApp, but now because WhatsApp is changing its privacy policies, we are moving to Signal. So instead of a tool like Zoom or a Google Meet, we use a tool called Big Blue Button. Big Blue Button is free and open. So any school or any school system can install it on their own servers. The advantage of Big Blue Button is because the source code is open, you can be sure that not only there's license fee issues are not there, but data theft and data surveillance, those kind of challenges will not be there. Because imagine all the data of this country being sucked by Google or Facebook or Zoom into America. There is a huge loss in terms of national sovereignty and national resources. So therefore, we want to look at models where there is public investment on the hardware and connectivity. There is open source in terms of software being available freely for people to share. And our work has always focused on creating of open content. So using free software to create free content has been an important focus area of our work, where we make teachers to create content. So if the public investment on hardware and connectivity is complemented by free software and open content, we feel that the possibilities of reaching it out to as many universally is higher. So that is what is going to be our focus over the next few years, to make sure that digital technologies, online education is not something for the privileged, but it is going to work for everybody. And then the teacher decides when to use it and when not to use it. So that also doesn't become another thing forced on the teacher.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful to hear, sir. I think it's great to see what IT for Change has planned for the future. And with this, sir, we would like to bring our interview to an end. It's been a great pleasure to listen to you, to your insights and your experience on how education has transformed over the years and where it has to go further. So thank you, sir, for sparing some time, and we wish IT for Change all the best with all its future efforts.
Thank you. Pleasure talking to you.